Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well on this Sunday afternoon. Wanted to come on and break down the 49ers 28-14 loss to the Atlanta Falcons today in Atlanta, dropping them to 3-3 on the season. This one went very similar to what I thought would happen in this game in terms of the way that they ended up losing the game. Overall, I would say it was pretty much a good old fashioned ass kicking by the Atlanta Falcons, especially on offense. And we'll get through that a little bit. This was it was a rough game, and we'll get into it. If you want to look for a silver lining, if you're a 49ers fan looking for a silver lining out of today's game, here's the one thing that you can say: there are four teams in the NFC conference right now that will finish this week above 500. That means there are three teams all in a big logjam. Right now, there's a bunch of teams at 500 at 3-3. So there's a big logjam at the bottom of the conference. And 49ers aren't out of it at all. They might actually end this week still in first place in the NFC West. But I got to say, heading into this game, I kept hearing about how Nick Bosa didn't have to play because they're just playing against the Atlanta Falcons. They don't need him against Atlanta. They need Nick Bosa when they go against the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, there's only so much that you can do. And you look at this game, and one of my first key to this game, the first thing that I put out there on Friday was, can the 49ers run defense hold up? Can they do that? And the answer to that was a resounding no, they couldn't. And here's the thing. The 49ers front seven today was the same starting front seven as last week in Carolina when they shut down the Panthers. What was the difference today? Oh, there was one guy missing. That's right, Nick Bosa. He was the only guy missing. The other six, the rest of that front seven was the same. They just got beat, and they got out-physicaled from the beginning of the game all the way through. Coming into this one, I told you ahead of time, the 49ers have struggled against teams that will stick with the run game. The Bears and the Broncos did that in week 1 and week 3. They came out with wins. They had 68 rushing attempts in those two games. In the 49ers' 3 victories, those teams got away from the run. The Rams can't run the ball to save their life. Carolina, they were just a dumpster fire on the offensive side of the ball. In Seattle, kind of the same thing. They're not very strong. They got a quarterback that throws the ball around the yard and is getting a lot of praise for being much improved this year, but that's not a good offense really at all in Seattle either. And so against the teams, though, like Atlanta, who come into this game, this is what DeMeco Ryans said on Thursday when asked about this. One thing about the Falcons is they are physical and they finish. They run the ball. They don't try to hide it. They're not disguising it. They want to play smash mouth football. They've done a good job of sticking to the run. Even when they've been down, they continue to run the ball, and they've been successful at it. Top 3 in the league. We have our hands full this week. Well, the Atlanta run game kicked your ass today. They were all over you. And it wasn't just one series. It wasn't just one play. It wasn't just running the ball a lot at the end of the game when they were up. They did this throughout the game. There was one possession, I believe it was the Falcons' first touchdown possession of the second half when they went up 21-14. No, excuse me. It was their one touchdown because they only scored one touchdown in the second half. I'm sorry. It was 28-14, and they were up 21-14 at a half. So on the Falcons' one touchdown drive of the second half, the Falcons opened with a pass for 10. Their next 7 plays were runs. They ran the ball 7 times for 48 yards, got it down inside the 10, and then you had the touchdown with a pass from Mariota over the middle to get them up 28-14. They just dominated. They dominated in the trenches on offense. The Falcons dominated on the trenches on defense, and it was just a good old fashioned butt whooping today. Now, real quick, just shout out a few folks. We got Keneal Mason says, "What up, Jack? Hey, what up, Keneal? Good to have you on board." We have Goira Von Jinks. We're all doing better than the Niners. Well, I sure hope so. Lester, San Jose, member of the Toolbox, says, Robbie, got to stop traveling to the road games. Absolutely. I didn't call him out on Twitter like I told him I was, but that's partly because I feel bad for him. That guy spent a lot of money to travel around the country, and the 49ers just keep dropping it when he's there. I feel bad for him. Let's see what else. Luke Walsh, I mentioned Wilson's ball security earlier this week, but that was one of many players with shortcomings today. That definitely was one. If we can't hold people under 15 points, we have no shot. Well, there's that part too. We'll get into that a little bit on the offensive side of the ball in a minute. We have Odd Job says, hi, Jack. Good to have you on board, Odd Job. What happened to our running game? Asked Mike. What happened to the run game is the 49ers actually played a defense that wasn't missing both of their starting safeties and their starting middle linebacker today. We'll get into that one in just a little bit too, but that's a really good question. I agree for this, James. I mentioned this already this week. We need to trade for Christian McCaffrey if Mason can't beat out Coleman or Wilson. I agree with you. I think that Christian McCaffrey would be a big help for this 49ers offense. I like what Jeff Wilson Jr. does, but a guy like Christian McCaffrey, that's a different level of player. That's what the 49ers need, especially if they're going to run the ball as much as they want to. They have the 49ers on the offensive side of the ball don't have explosiveness. And even when they get explosive plays, well, we saw what happens today when they should get explosive plays. Lester wants to know, did Ryans make adjustments to keep them at 28, or did Atlanta take their foot off the gas pedal? I don't think Atlanta took their foot off the gas pedal. I think that Ryan's defense played okay, but let's just take a look at really quick at the second half. In the second half, you had the 9-play, 65 touchdown drive, took 5 minutes and 12 seconds off the clock. The next time Atlanta got the ball, they still were able to pick up a first down. They only went 18 yards. It was 6 plays, though. They took nearly 4 minutes of time off the clock. Then they got the ball back again. It was only 6 plays, only 18 yards again, but this time they took 4 minutes off the clock. And then they wrapped it up at the end of the game with a 5-play drive. I think 5 plays, maybe 6 plays for 20. Only took a minute 30. Partly the reason that one was shorter was because of the incompletion that Mariota threw to stop the clock. But in the second half, after that touchdown drive, it was run. Even before that, it was run. Like I said, Atlanta finished today with 40 carries. They had 20 carries in the first half, 20 carries in the second half. So it wasn't like they were just piling up the runs at the end of the game. It's who they are. It's what they do. And the 49ers didn't have the ability to stop a team that decided they were just going to stick it at them today. That's really what it comes down to. They were going up against an Atlanta team that said, we are going to run the ball down your throat unless you stop us. And the 49ers couldn't stop them. Again, no Nick Bosa was the only difference to the 49ers front seven. And I get it. It's not only when you're talking about Nick Bosa, who's probably your best defensive player, one of the guys who really changes things on that defensive front. They really could have used him. If there was any way that Nick Bosa could have gone today and the 49ers chose not to play him, that's malpractice on the franchise's part. I would like to believe that wasn't the case. That's the way that I'm going to proceed, was that he just wasn't able to go. But again, this goes out to all the things that I've been saying. I said throughout the week, this defense needed to stop the run and that it was going to be difficult for them to do it. And we saw the way that it played out today. 40 carries, what was it, 100 and I can't remember exactly what the number was. It was over 100 yards, well over 100 yards, 150 yards, somewhere in that, 168 yards. 40 carries, 168, a 4.2 yard average, one run of 20 yards by Marcus Mariota, and a 16-yard run by Caleb Huntley. The run by Huntley was a toss sweep around the right sideline. Tyler Algier, the BYU product, 15 carries for 51 yards. The big run today, the big run that cost the 49ers this game, came late in the second quarter, 3rd and 13. Looks like the 49ers might force a punt by the Falcons, and Marcus Mariota breaks free, sprints up the middle of the field for a gain, picks up the first down. They end up scoring a touchdown on that one. And that's the difference. That really kind of sets it up because they get up there. The 49ers aren't able to respond with any points right at the end of the half. They kind of get a little bit of offense going, but they're not able to get it. You have Garoppolo throw the interception on what was that? 1st and 10 from the 48 with about 9 seconds to go. Kind of just a Hail Mary situation. It's whatever on that one. But this was just it was just a butt whooping. And it starts with the running game. The 49ers run game has not been good for a while. Ever since Trey Lance went down, this 49ers run game has been almost non-existent. They had a good outing last week against Carolina where they averaged 5.3 yards per attempt. But other than that, they had been averaging 3.5 yards in the previous 2 games, 2 3/4 games with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Last week they had a good performance. They were right back down at it today. 16 carries, only 50 yards, an average of 3.1 yards. Heck, even Jimmy Garoppolo averaged more than the 3.1 yards per carry. He had 3.7. But when your second best running back on your team that you feel comfortable going is Tevin Coleman, who carried the ball 4 times for 3 yards, the 49ers are in trouble if you have that. So again, number one, my top thing was, can the 49ers run defense hold? No. They got beat up throughout the game. No, I'm just trying to think about it. The front 7 was the same as what they had last week in Carolina, minus Nick Bosa. Both the safeties were the same. The only difference was you didn't have Travarius Ward for most of the game because he went out early, and you didn't have Emmanuel Mosley because he was injured prior to the game. But your middle of your defense was all pretty much there except for Bosa, and you got handled. Now, number 2 that I asked was, can Jimmy Garoppolo keep it going? And I give him a no. And that might be a little harsh when you really look at the way that this game transpired for Jimmy Garoppolo, at least from my TV set. I wasn't in Atlanta today, so I didn't get to see the full field. I saw some reports where there were guys running open that he should have hit, those types of things. I'll get to that a little bit later in the week when I get a chance to look at the film review. We'll break that down. But let's just go based off of what I could actually see, which was on my TV set. And I thought Jimmy Garoppolo played fine. But the reason I give him a no here is because really what it was about keeping it going was, can Jimmy Garoppolo go without throwing an interception? He had 2 today. He had the one on the deep ball right before the half. Again, kind of I look at that first one. That's not a big deal to me because it's 9 seconds to go. You're chucking it down the field. You're just hoping that the guy catches it. There's 3 guys around him, but you're taking the shot. And that's just the way that it plays out. But the second one, you've got an over route from Deebo Samuel, and that's a really well played ball by the defender. We've seen that play in the past to go against the 49ers just because of the timing of it. The ball gets to Samuel as the defender does. The defender ball bounces up in the air. Safety comes over, picks it off, and it goes the other direction. But at the same time, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a whole lot of help today. Before that second interception, let's don't forget what happened in the second half. In the second half, the 49ers opened up with a pass to Brandon Ayuk on a quick slant to the right side. It was dropped. The next play, 2nd and 10. It's a deep ball down the middle to Ray McCloud. Hits him in the hands. Dropped. Next possession, the 3rd down, some pressure. He has time. He's looking around. There's nobody there. Gets a little bit of pressure, dumps it off to Kyle Juszczyk for a gain of 5. So they end up having to punt. And get the ball back. 1st down right away after a toss to Deebo Samuel, picks up 7. Garoppolo hits Juszczyk for 7, picks up the 1st down. 1st and 10. Another nice run by Samuel for 5. So now it puts you at 2nd and 5. You're on your own 44, right there in the middle of the field. Charlie Warner, wide open down the middle of the field, sticks it on his face, and he drops it. That's 3 passes, 3 drops. 2 of them were big plays. And then you have the incompletion on the next play, pressure off the right side. He's backpedaling away from it. He's got a Texas kind of choice route over the middle. Bad throw, a little bit behind and short, incomplete. But you got 3 shots there at the start of that second half that are drops. And then From there, it just doesn't really do much. The next series, they're down 28-14. The next time they get the ball back, some good passes, gets them down to past midfield or right around midfield. And then that's when the pick occurs to Deebo Samuel. And then by the time they get the ball back next, they get it on their own 1 yard line. They drive the ball for 8 minutes. That's how long it takes them to get down the field, in part because you have a deep ball from Garoppolo to Ayuk that would have picked up 39, get called back because of a hold on Jake Brendel. The 49ers offense just doesn't have an explosive element in the pass. And it's not even that you can say it's because of the quarterback, at least not today. Today, the quarterback had 2 balls that were deep that hit guys in the hands that they dropped. They had another deep ball get called back because of a hold on an offensive lineman. Was Jimmy Garoppolo responsible for the loss today? No, not necessarily. Did he do enough to help the team win today? No, not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of things that played into this defeat. I thought Garoppolo played fairly well throughout most. We know the limitations of this team. We know that Jimmy Garoppolo, that the deep throw isn't what these guys are the best at. These guys are best working the short to intermediate routes, working their way down the field, getting an explosive play here and there from the receivers. They didn't get that today. They had drops and a complete lack of any kind of a rushing attack. And part of the reason for the lack of a run game too is they're not able to get a whole lot of attempts off because they're trailing by 14 right away. I sent out a tweet at halftime and I said, in which it said, the 49ers were losing 21-20, 21-14, excuse me. And the reason they were losing at that point was a fumble by Jeff Wilson Jr. And that I blame Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. And the responses that I got were like, that wasn't Jimmy's fault. I understand. I'm not blaming. The 49ers weren't trailing at the end of the first half because of Jimmy Garoppolo. They were trailing at the first half because of the fact that they had a fumble that got returned for a touchdown. That's it. It should have been a 14-14 game. Jeff Wilson Jr. fumbled. That was it. I don't know why you're telling me to stop, Greg. I don't know why you're wanting me to stop, because this was a game that should have been 14-14 at minimum. I wasn't at the game. I've seen the reports on Twitter, the tweets from people that were at the game about guys who were open. That's fine. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm basing it off of what I could actually see, just like you on TV. And thank you. But it's just, I'm looking at this thing and it's just the defense got drilled today. Guys couldn't hold on to the ball. Jake Brendel with a hold, a bad snap gets called for a penalty. Just a bad performance all the way around. And, here we go. Next one. Let's move it on. Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. You're going to see reports of how Garoppolo cost the team the game, I guess. I saw one person say that Marcus Mariota played better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, you can say that based on the stats. He threw the ball 14 times, or 13, I think it was. He had his first incompletion come in the he was 13 of 14, hit his first 13, didn't have his first incompletion until what was that? About 4.5 minutes into the fourth quarter. So he was 13 for 13. He ended up 13 of 14, 121, but the scramble was a big one. They did get to him a couple of times on sacks, but those didn't really help him a whole lot, because one of the touchdowns, the scramble that he picked up, where he picked up the third down, I believe they had a sack earlier in that possession. Let's see what else we got. Looking at the game, kind of the things that I said were going to be important to it. Can the 49ers pass defense overcome the loss of Emmanuel Moseley? I'm giving them a no on that one as well. Anytime you give up 13 of 14 to a quarterback and you only have one incompletion, some of that has to come on the pass defense. You saw Samuel Womack get burned for a touchdown to Kyle Pitts on one. You saw, I believe it was George Odom, get beat for the touchdown to Michael Pruitt, who had been in training camp with the 49ers last year for the first touchdown from the Falcons. So you look at this game. Who else was it? Diamador Lenore giving up a deep ball for about a gain of about 20 down the left sideline, right over the top of his head. the cornerbacks on this defense struggle for sure. When you don't have Charvarius Ward and you don't have Emmanuel Moseley, that was kind of the saving grace when you looked at this game, at least coming into it. When I was talking about the looking at the game ahead of time, was that, Moseley being out is one thing, but at least you got Charvarius Ward. And you still kind of have that lockdown corner on the other side. You can kind of work with that. But then you lose Charvarius Ward early in this one, and it was a struggle. And the passing game it was somewhat explosive for Atlanta, but the 49ers didn't lose this game because of the passing game by the Falcons. The 49ers lost this game because they couldn't stop the run. It was just death by paper cut. I think somebody even mentioned this on the comment section over there, but that's really what this game was. It was just body shot after body shot after body shot after body shot. So anyway, that's the way that it looked like to me. What else have we got going on here? We've got will Nick Bosa play? That was my third one. If he does, how effective is he going to be? No, Bosa didn't play. And as you saw how that turned out for the 49ers again. On the 49ers defense, the starting 49ers defense that started against Carolina was missing one guy in the middle. That was Bosa. I know about the mistake, the guys on the edges, but the safeties, the linebackers, the defensive line, those 9, the only guy that wasn't starting today was Bosa. I think that was a part of the reason that you saw the run game be so good today for Atlanta. It was going to be good anyway because they're good at it and that's what they do. But not having Bosa in there is something that causes you trouble. I mean, there's a reason why he is one of the best defensive linemen in the game. And it's not just because he's a pass rusher. He's an exceptional pass rusher, but he does other things well, particularly stopping the run. Didn't have him out there today. Samson Ebukam was up and down with injuries as well on the opposite side. And even when Ebukam was in the game, there was a couple of times when they ran the zone read right at him, and he just chased the fake inside. And it was either he's screwing up by going inside, or the linebacker who's supposed to scrape across to get to the back isn't able to get there. So I'm not sure how it works out. Not sure what their expectation was there, I should say. So it was a tough one. Let's see what else we have. The last one was, can Jeff Wilson Jr. and the 49ers run game repeat? And that's a big no already. I talked about this one earlier. Coming into this game, or coming into last week's game against Carolina, the 49ers had averaged 3.5 yards per rush attempt since Jimmy Garoppolo replaced Lance. Last week, they were able to get 120 yards on 17 carries out of Wilson, and they averaged 5.3 yards per attempt overall. Today, going against a Falcons defense that had all of their starters in there, they got shut down. Only 16 carries, only 3.1 yards per attempt, I believe it was. 7 carries for 25 yards for Jeff Wilson Jr. That's more like what we've seen out of him, about 3.6 yards per carry. That's about where he usually is. Deebo Samuel, 2 carries for 11. Garoppolo matches that with 11 yards on 3 carries. That's never a good sign. And then Coleman with the other 4 for a gain of 3. I will say this. Here's the bright spot for this. You guys remember a couple of weeks ago, the 49ers won a game against the Rams, and there was a lot of hand-wringing over the use of George Kittle. The tight end wasn't getting many targets, and people were questioning his role in the 49ers offense. And, well, the good news is that he had 10 targets today. He had 8 catches for 83 yards. Bravo. That helps your fantasy football team. Didn't help the 49ers because those numbers don't help. And the 49ers are at their best when George Kittle is just another piece of the puzzle. When George Kittle is run blocking and pass blocking, every once in a while gets a pass thrown to his direction, that's when the 49ers are at their best. They're not at their best when they're throwing the ball to George Kittle 10 times. When George Kittle put up his best numbers in 2018, the year that everybody started to say that George Kittle was one of the top receiving tight ends in the league, the 49ers were a 6-win football team that year. So, or was it even 6? No, they were 4. They were 4-12 in 2018. That's when George Kittle had his explosion. The 49ers were a 4-12 football team. George Kittle is a very good tight end. He's not a guy that should be a focal point of your team. And so I only bring that up because all the talk that was going on 2 weeks ago around George Kittle, I don't have anything against George Kittle. I think he's a really good player, but he's not a guy that you should be worried about getting the ball. Today, he got 10 passes. Cool. On his way, 10 passes, 8 catches, 83 yards. You scored 14 points. You had a drop by Raven McLeod. You had a drop by the other tight end, Charlie Warner. You had a drop on a throw by Brandon Ayuk, who, for the most part, that's the other guy too, right? We came into this game with, when is Brandon Ayuk going to be a difference maker for your team? And he caught 8 passes for 83 yards. Another good day for him. They both, look at that, Kittle and Ayuk, the two guys who people have been wondering when they're going to get at targets. They caught a total of 16 passes today for 166 yards. And the 49ers offense put up 14 points. The 49ers are a team that's going to be at their best when they run the ball. They're going to throw not necessarily where they're going to run the ball to set up the pass. The 49ers don't need to run the ball more than they pass to win games, but you got to be able to run the ball more than 16 times for 50 yards. Again, some of that 16 carries and only having 16 carries is because you're down 14-0. But here's the rub on that. It goes to the 49ers opponent today. When the Atlanta Falcons were down 21-0 last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they still finished that game with 31 carries because they have an identity, and their identity is to run the football, and that they're going to run the football well regardless. And the 49ers came out today. They showed their identity. They don't have one on offense. They want to run the ball, but if they can't run the ball or they fall behind or it gets to a tough situation, Kyle Shanahan is going to get off of the run. He's going to start throwing the ball, and the 49ers don't have the guys to make the plays. Brandon Ayuk, decent receiver, pretty good. One of probably, in the top 20 in the NFL. I don't know where I'd rank him, but he's a pretty good receiver. Deebo Samuel, obviously, I think he's one of the better guys in the league. Beyond that, the 49ers have a bunch of guys. They have, again, you have Juwan Jennings, good third down receiver. Ray McLeod, hit him in the hands. Charlie Warner, hit you in the hands. Big plays that cost your team points, and the 49ers lose this thing 28-14. Let me see what we've got going on in the comment section real quick. Answer a couple questions before I jump out. Go get my writing done for the day. Kia 1967, Jack, do you think this defense took Atlanta's Pop Warner offense scheme too lightly and laughed at it and said to themselves, we're going to shut it down because it looked like it? No, I don't think that. I think that they just they got beat, and I think the Falcons have run game is a good run game. Again, I said that coming in that this run game was going to be good, and they took it to them. And I don't think that the Atlanta has a Pop Warner offense. I think Atlanta has an offensive scheme on the running side that's very similar to what the 49ers wanted to do with Trey Lance and what they were doing with Trey Lance in the first couple games of the season. It's very similar to what you're seeing with the Philadelphia Eagles and what they're doing up there with Jalen Hurts, and what you're seeing happen with the run from the run game perspective in Buffalo with Josh Allen, where the quarterback is one of those guys that you have to focus on. So I don't think it's a Pop Warner offense. I just think that the 49ers were out physicaled. And when I talk about this, I don't think that the 49ers were of the same mindset as what their fans were, because there were a lot of 49er fans this week when I said that George Kittle, that you should have Nick Bosa play, who told me it wasn't necessary. This was just the Falcons. Archon Jetty says, Jack, please tell Kyle we want Mason for a half. Then we'll see. Then we'll see the fans. Jack, please tell Kyle we want to see Mason for a half. Then we'll see. Again, you got this guy on your team for a reason. He's active week after week. If Jordan Mason isn't a better runner than Tevin Coleman, what are we doing here? Seriously. Tevin Coleman had a really nice reception down the sideline last week, had I think, a couple of nice runs in that game against Carolina. But again, Jordan Mason has shown explosiveness every time he's been on the field. Obviously, most of that's was in the preseason. He showed explosiveness during training camp against the 49ers defense. He showed some nice ability in the one run that he's had this season during the regular season on a pickup of 7 on a toss sweep around the left side. I don't know. Don't know. Don't get it. Greg wants to say, do you think the season is washed because of injuries? I'm starting to think it's over already, but I hope not. Thanks for the show. Keep it up. Thank you for the super chat, Greg. Sorry I got after you earlier. That was my bad. I should know better. In terms of the season being over, no, this season isn't over. It's not washed, and that's partly why I said what I said to open up the show. In the NFC right now, you have 3 teams in the NFC East that are over 500, that are going to be over 500 at the end of this week. And then you have the Minnesota Vikings. So those are your 4 teams in the NFC that are over 500. The rest of the NFC is at 500 or below. So the 49ers are right there. Depending on the outcome of today's games, the 49ers could still be in first place in the NFC West. A win by the Rams doesn't affect the 49ers. I'm not sure how the tiebreaker works between the Cardinals and the 49ers. If the Cardinals are able to get the better of the Cardinals, or who are the Cardinals playing today? They're playing against the other team from the NFC West. 49ers, Rams, Seahawks. The Seahawks and the Seahawks and the Cardinals are playing today. So if the Cardinals win, I don't know how that one works out. But if the Rams win, it doesn't matter. The 49ers hold a tiebreaker over them, and the 49ers hold the tiebreaker over Seattle as well. It's just I'm not sure where the 49ers are in terms of tiebreaker against the Cardinals. So it's very likely the 49ers are still going to be in first place at the end of the day, with a really tough game coming up against Kansas City at home. And we'll see. This has been a bumpy ride. And I'm going to wrap this up with, Greg, thank you again for the super chat. I'm going to just take a look at some of the other questions just to see if there's anything that I missed before I kind of give my wrap up on things. You guys have been pretty good today, by the way. Hey, Ryan, good to see you. Talk to you tomorrow morning. That's going to be fun. All right. Well, Matt says our division is soft. The entire NFC West, the entire NFC is soft. 49ers at 3-3. Got to remember, last year they were 3-5 before getting it together. Right now, with the way everything sets up, the 49ers are still in position to possibly win the NFC West. You win the NFC West, you guarantee yourself a home playoff game in the playoffs. It's the only way that you're a playoff home team is by winning your division. So the 49ers are still in position to even have a playoff game at home. Who knows how this thing's going to end? But here's what I'm going to say. And what I wanted to say is, before this season started, we're looking at the schedule and we're breaking it down, and we're saying that 49ers are going to win this show. 49ers are going to win that game. They're going to finish with this record, that record. And I would be not telling the truth if I said that at this point in that prior to the season, if the 49ers finish these first 6 weeks at 3-3, they're in trouble. You look at those first 6 weeks, and it was all games. The 49ers right now have, even today against Atlanta, I still believe the 49ers were the most talented team on the field, even with the injuries. It's like I said, you look at that 49ers defense, you had 9 starters from the Carolina Panthers game on the field to start that game. It became 8 after Charvarius Ward got hurt. You got beat, but at the same time, this was a 21-14 game if Jeff Wilson Jr. holds onto the ball. You've got to win games like this. You've got to win the games you're supposed to. The 49ers are 3-3. They have the toughest part of their schedule coming up now. They have a lot of really good quarterbacks coming to town. And at the same time, some of those quarterbacks are struggling. I think this game against Kansas City could see them go to fall to 3-4, but then you take on a Rams team that you've already shown you can beat. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, they went into Pittsburgh today and they lost to a 1-win team, scored 18 points. The NFC is just weak. 49ers, it's going to be right there for the 49ers for the taking, just like it was last year, if they can just get it together. Stop making the stupid mistakes. Catch the ball when it hits you in the hands. Make the tackles when you got him guy wrapped up. Those types of things. So we'll see how it works out. But right now, 3-3 after 6 weeks, not good. The fact that you're on top of the NFC West, that's a positive. And we'll see where this thing goes from the 49ers for here. So want to say thanks to everybody that took the time to tune in. If you're watching this and you're already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button before you leave. And then after you hit that subscribe button, go ahead and make sure that you hit the bell notification so you don't miss when we go live. Last but not least, go ahead, hit that like button. Hitting the like button is one of the biggest things that you can do for anybody's YouTube channel, because that's how you get the signal amplified. The more likes that these things get, the more views that they hit. The more views, the better it is for us as far as content creators that are getting monetized, such as myself, trying to grow this so that I can do this full time and do the reporting and follow the team and be in Atlanta instead of at home in California today. Just want to say thanks to everybody. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Sorry about the loss today, but keep your eyes out on 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. You'll see my write-up there for the game in about an hour and a half. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.